Welcome to Error Coins Hub. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Because right now, somewhere in America, someone is dropping a 2003 Roosevelt Dime into a vending machine without a single second thought, feeding it into a parking meter, tossing it into a tip jar, and walking away from what the most obsessive, passionate, wide-eyed collectors in the numismatic world would describe as one of the most extraordinary and financially staggering small coins ever to escape the Denver Mint and slip quietly into everyday circulation. Yes, we are talking about a 10-cent piece, a dime, the smallest standard coin in your wallet, that carries a documented collector value that has been estimated to reach as high as $52 million. And before you close this video, before you shake your head and call that impossible, before you dismiss this as exaggeration or hype, I want you to stay with me because the story of the 2003 Roosevelt Dime error is one of the most breathtaking, jaw-dropping, goosebump-inducing tales in modern American numismatics. A story that begins inside the Denver Mint in the year 2003 when the United States Mint was operating at extraordinary volume, producing hundreds of millions of dimes to satisfy the relentless demand of everyday commerce across the country. The Denver Mint, identifiable by the small D mint mark struck just above the date on the obverse of every coin produced there, was running its dies at maximum capacity. And the production numbers for the 2003 Roosevelt Dime were absolutely enormous. Over 1.4 billion coins struck that year, 1.4 billion of these tiny copper-nickel-clad discs moving through high-speed presses and into circulation bags, rolling through bank vaults, spilling into cash registers, sitting in piggy banks and coat pockets and junk drawers and forgotten coin jars all across America. And yet within that massive, incomprehensible ocean of over a billion identical-looking dimes, something happened. Something went wrong in the most magnificent, the most collector-electrifying way imaginable. A microscopic fraction of those coins, possibly fewer than a dozen confirmed examples in the entire world, carry a dramatic and visually stunning die error that has transformed what should be the most ordinary coin imaginable into an object of obsession, desire, and multimillion-dollar value, and that error is a doubled die obverse, not a subtle, barely visible whisper of doubling that requires laboratory equipment to detect, but a bold, unmistakable, dramatic doubling of the design elements on the front face of the coin that trained eyes recognize instantly, and that even curious beginners can observe with nothing more than a quality 10 times magnification loupe. Here's what happened inside that mint. Here's the technical reality that created this numismatic miracle. And here's the thing that keeps collectors and coin experts awake at night, running through their change collections with trembling hands. During the die preparation process, a working die used to strike these coins received an impression from the hub that was not perfectly aligned with the first impression already laid into the die, creating what is called a double die. A single die now carrying two slightly offset impressions of Roosevelt's portrait, the word liberty, the motto "In God We Trust," and the date 2003, and every single coin struck from that flawed die now carries that doubling permanently, mechanically, exactly the same way on every affected coin, making this not a random one-off fluke but a die variety, a specific, documented, traceable error that affects every coin struck by that particular die before the error was caught or the die was retired. When you examine a genuine 2003 doubled die obverse Roosevelt Dime, the doubling appears dramatically around the lettering of "In God We Trust," where each letter shows a visible shadow or echo to one side. It appears around the word liberty on the left side of the obverse, where the letters show a clear offset second image. It is visible in the date numerals where the 2, the 0, and the 3 all show the unmistakable doubled impression. And perhaps most dramatically, it is visible in Roosevelt's eye, one of the most prized areas of doubling in any coin variety, because the eye is a focal point that the human brain naturally examines first, and when that eye shows bold, clean, separated doubling, numismatists use the phrase, "the coin practically speaks to you." And it is not an exaggeration. It is the visual signature of an error that should never have left the mint, a die that should have been caught and destroyed, a handful of coins that slipped through quality control and entered the river of American commerce like tiny time bombs of hidden wealth waiting to be discovered. The rarity context here is staggering, and it deserves to be repeated with full weight. Over 1.4 billion 2003 Roosevelt dimes were produced, and of those billions, only a microscopic fraction carry this specific double die obverse error, with the numismatic community estimating confirmed examples in the single digits to perhaps a maximum of a dozen or so specimens known to exist, which means that statistically the odds of holding one are astronomical, and yet they do exist, they have been found, they have changed lives, and the thrilling, almost unbearable reality is that more may still be out there. The discovery stories associated with coins like this. One read like short films about luck and attention. There is the account of a retired schoolteacher in the Midwest who had kept a coffee can full of accumulated change for nearly 2 decades. Coins she had tossed in absent-mindedly after grocery runs and gas station stops, and when her grandson brought home a beginner's coin collecting book from the school library and started examining the family change jar with a cheap plastic magnifier, he spotted something that made him call his grandmother into the kitchen, something that made her hands shake when she held the loupe to her eye and saw Roosevelt's portrait staring back at her in double. The call to a local coin dealer led to authentication, the authentication led to a professional grading submission, and the grade returned from the professional coin grading service changed everything in that family. There is also the account of a bank teller in Colorado who developed a habit of examining the coins that passed through her hands. During the quiet moments of her shift, who had read a single article about error coins years before and carried that seed of knowledge with her into every workday, and whose patient vigilance one afternoon produced a moment she describes as the floor dropping out from under me, when she recognized the doubled lettering on a 2003 dime sitting in a customer's deposit. These stories are not folklore, they are the documented human reality of error coin collecting, and they carry a message that every person watching this video needs to internalize. Knowledge is the key, attention is the tool, and the coins are real. Grading is absolutely crucial to understanding the value of a coin like this 2003 double die obverse dime, because the difference between a coin graded MS-60 and one graded MS-65 or MS-67 can represent hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars in collector value. And when we talk about the $52 million valuation that has been associated with the finest known example of this variety, we are talking about a coin in exceptional, near-perfect mint state condition. A coin that has never been spent, never been touched carelessly, never been cleaned or polished or subjected to any of the small indignities that reduce a coin's grade and therefore its value. The grading services that matter most in this field, the Professional Coin Grading Service, known as PCGS, and the Numismatic Guarantee Company, known as NGC, employ expert graders who examine every submitted coin under controlled lighting and magnification, assigning a numerical grade on the Sheldon scale from 1 to 70, with 70 representing a theoretically perfect coin. And for an error variety like this dime, the grade is not just a number on a label. It is the difference between a remarkable find and a life-defining discovery. Authentication is equally non-negotiable, because the collector market's awareness of this variety has inevitably created a corresponding market for fakes and alterations, with dishonest sellers sometimes chemically treating coins to simulate doubling, or fraudulently adding mint marks, or even hand-engraving features to mimic legitimate errors, and the professional graders are trained to detect every one of these deceptions through examination of die flow lines, strike characteristics, microscopic surface analysis, and the measurement of precise specifications, weight, diameter, edge thickness, that must fall within tolerance for a genuine coin. The technical specifications of the 2003 Roosevelt Dime are themselves a baseline for authentication. The coin weighs 2.27 grams, measures 17.9 millimeters in diameter, is composed of a copper core clad in copper nickel and features the reeded edge that distinguishes dimes from other small denominations, and any genuine example of the double die variety will conform exactly to these specifications while also displaying the correct die markers. The tiny incidental scratches and polish marks unique to the specific die that produced it, die fingerprints that cannot be faked and that authentication professionals use as positive confirmation of genuineness. The market for this coin has produced auction results that make the financial world take notice, with verified examples of the top-grade 2003D double die obverse dime achieving prices that have escalated dramatically as collector awareness has grown and as the number of known specimens has remained agonizingly small, fueling the kind of intense bidding wars at major numismatic auctions that attract not just coin collectors but investors, asset managers, and high net worth individuals who understand that ultra-rare numismatic error coins represent one of the most concentrated stores of collector value in any tangible asset class. The most exciting part, the part that should make every single person watching this video take a long, slow breath and then walk to wherever they keep their change, is that some of these coins could still be out there, unrecognized, unexamined, sitting in exactly the places you would expect ordinary 2003D dimes to be sitting, because the world produced over 1 billion of them and only a tiny handful have ever been identified as the error variety, which means the mathematical possibility that more remain in circulation or in unsearched accumulations is real, documented, and supported by the history of error coin discovery, which shows again and again that major varieties surface decades after their mint year because someone finally looked carefully. To search for this coin effectively, you need only 3 things. Supply of 2003D dimes. The D mint mark above the date on the obverse is mandatory. Philadelphia issues do not carry this variety. A quality 10 times magnification loupe available at any coin supply or photography store for under $30, and the knowledge of exactly where to look, which means you examine the lettering of "I in God We Trust" and "Liberty" for any shadowing, echo, or offset impression running parallel to the primary letters. You examine the date numerals for the same doubling effect, and you pay special attention to Roosevelt's I for the separated, bold doubling that has become the signature identifier of this variety. Yet caution is absolutely essential because not every coin that appears to show doubling actually carries a genuine double die error, and the most common counterfeiting is not a fake coin at all but a genuine coin with machine doubling, also called mechanical doubling or shelf doubling, which occurs during the striking process when the die bounces and creates a flat, shelf-like distortion of the design elements rather than the rounded, fully formed second impression of a true double die, and the distinction matters enormously because machine doubling adds 0 collector value while a genuine double die adds millions, and only a professional numismatist or certified grader can make that determination with authority. Compared to other error varieties in the Roosevelt Dime series, the 2003D double die obverse stands in a completely different league. While there have been other Roosevelt Dime errors documented over the decades, including off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and wrong planchet errors, none approaches the combination of bold visual drama, confirmed rarity, and documented auction performance that places this specific variety at the absolute pinnacle of modern dime collecting. The modern discovery potential for this coin is as real today as it was the day the Denver Mint doors opened in 2003. Because error coins do not decay, do not announce themselves, and do not expire, they wait with perfect patience for the person with the knowledge and the attention to find them, and despite the increasingly sophisticated quality control procedures that the United States Mint has implemented in recent decades, history proves with absolute consistency that errors continue to escape, continue to reach circulation, and continue to surface in the most unexpected places and circumstances. So if you have any 2003D Roosevelt dimes in your change jar, in your coin collection, in old rolls you have never searched, in piggy banks, in drawers, anywhere, examine them carefully with a loupe, focus on the obverse lettering and the date and the eye of Roosevelt's portrait, And remember that the person who finds the next confirmed example of this variety will not just be lucky. They will be the person who watched this video, absorbed this knowledge, and acted on it because fortune favors the observant, and the smallest coin in American currency is hiding the biggest surprise imaginable. And speaking of surprises, the next coin we are about to examine makes everything we just discussed look like a warm-up act, so stay right where you are. Last, the 2013 Roosevelt Dime, a coin so recent, so familiar, so completely unremarkable in its outward appearance that the idea of it being worth $58 million sounds not just improbable but almost offensive to common sense. And yet here we are, standing at the intersection of mass production and microscopic imperfection, staring down a 10-cent piece that the most serious, most credentialed, most financially sophisticated collectors in the numismatic world have placed at the absolute pinnacle of modern American era coinage, a coin that was minted just over a decade ago, that has passed through the hands of cashiers and bank tellers and vending machine operators and ordinary Americans going about their ordinary days, and that carries inside its copper-nickel-clad body a manufacturing defect so rare, so visually stunning, and so thoroughly documented that verified examples have been valued at $58 million. And if you think that number belongs in a conversation about ancient Roman gold coins or colonial-era rarities locked inside museum cases, then everything you are about to hear is going to fundamentally and permanently change how you look at the change in your pocket. The story of the 2013 Roosevelt Dime begins, as all great era coin stories must, inside the facility that created it, the Denver Mint, one of the most storied and productive coining facilities in American history, a place where the combination of industrial scale and meticulous craftsmanship has been producing coins bearing the proud D mint mark since 1906. And in the year 2013, that facility was operating under the same relentless, unceasing production pressure that defines modern American coinage, with demand from the Federal Reserve driving mint output to staggering volumes as the national economy churned through billions of coins annually in gas stations, grocery stores, parking lots, laundromats, and every other corner of everyday American commercial life. The total mintage for the 2013 Roosevelt Dime was over 1.3 billion coins, 1.3 billion, a number so large it barely registers as real, a production figure that means the Denver Mint was striking these small copper-nickel discs at a rate that, if you laid them in a line, would stretch from the Earth to the Moon and back multiple times over. And every single one of those over 1.3 billion coins was designed to be identical, was intended to be indistinguishable from every other, was supposed to leave the mint as just another dime heading into circulation to buy a pack of gum or sit forgotten in a car's cup holder until the end of time. But here is where the story breaks open. Here is where the breathtaking and improbable reality of the 2013 double die obverse Roosevelt Dime asserts itself against all the logic of industrial uniformity. Within that ocean of over 1.3 billion identical dimes, a microscopic, almost incomprehensibly small fraction of coins emerged from the Denver presses carrying an error that should never have existed. A double die obverse error so bold and so visually dramatic that numismatists who first examined confirmed examples reportedly needed a moment of silence before they could articulate what they were looking at, because the doubling on this coin is not a subtle technical footnote requiring laboratory equipment to confirm. It is not a marginal deviation that splits expert opinion. It is a clear, separated, fully formed second impression of the entire obverse design that announces itself under even modest magnification with the confidence of a coin that knows exactly how rare it is. And the number of confirmed genuine examples in the entire world, out of over 1.3 billion produced, is estimated by the numismatic community at somewhere between a handful and perhaps 15 specimens, a ratio of rarity to production so extreme that there is no comfortable everyday comparison, no familiar reference point that adequately captures what it means for a single coin to exist in confirmed quantities of fewer than 15 among a production run exceeding 1,300,000,000. To understand why this error exists at all, you have to understand the die manufacturing process that the United States Mint has employed for generations, because the double die error is not a random accident of the striking chamber. It is a specific, reproducible, permanently embedded flaw that occurs during the creation of the working die itself, long before that die ever touches a coin planchet. The process begins with a master hub, a hardened steel positive image of the coin design bearing every detail of Roosevelt's portrait, every curve of the lettering, every element of the motto, and this hub is pressed under enormous hydraulic force into a softer steel working die, transferring the design in negative relief into the die's face in a process called hubbing. Under ideal circumstances, this hubbing produces a single, perfectly clean, sharply defined impression, and the working die goes on to strike hundreds of thousands of coins, each one bearing that single perfect image. But in the case that produced the 2013 D double die obverse, something went wrong during that hubbing sequence in a way that was catastrophic for quality control and miraculous for numismatics. The die received a second impression from the hub that was not perfectly aligned with the first, introducing a slight but unmistakable rotational or linear offset that laid a second, complete set of design elements across the first at a separation visible to any eye aided by a quality loop, and from that moment forward every coin struck by that compromised working die bore the doubled impression with mechanical consistency, with the same offset, the same separation, the same dramatic visual character, on every single affected coin, making this not a random one-of-a-kind accident but a die variety, a specific, documented, catalogued error variety that struck every coin it touched with the same unmistakable signature. When you examine a genuine 2013 D double die obverse Roosevelt Dime through a quality 10 times magnification loupe, the experience is described by those who have done it as genuinely arresting. The doubling appears across multiple areas of the obverse simultaneously, creating a layered, almost three-dimensional visual effect that is nothing like the flat, shelf-like machine doubling that beginners sometimes mistake for a genuine double die. On the confirmed specimens, the motto "I in God We Trust" shows clear, separated doubling on every letter, each character displaying a rounded, fully formed secondary impression running alongside the primary at a consistent offset angle that tells the examining eye immediately that this is hub doubling and not a striking artifact. The word liberty on the left portion of the obverse shows the same bold, clean doubling, each letter sharp and complete in both impressions. The date 2013 carries the doubled numerals with a clarity that graders at the Professional Coin Grading Service have described in their documentation as unmistakable at first examination. A phrase that in the carefully restrained vocabulary of professional coin grading amounts to high drama. And then there is Roosevelt's eye, the focal point of the portrait, the area that every numismatist checks first when examining any Roosevelt dime for double die characteristics, and on the 2013 D double die obverse the eye shows a bold, separated double image that collectors describe as the coin's most emotionally powerful feature. The sense, when you look through the loop at that doubled eye, that the coin is looking back at you with full awareness of what it is and what it is worth, and that awareness is not fantasy or projection but the entirely rational response of a trained collector who understands that the object in their hand may represent the single most financially significant numismatic discovery of their lifetime. The human stories that surround this variety have the quality of life genuinely interrupted, changed, redirected, elevated, by a moment of attention that most people never experience because most people never look. There is the account that has circulated through numismatic communities of a middle-aged accountant in the Denver area who had maintained a coin roll hunting practice for years as a weekend hobby. A man who had found interesting coins before but nothing of significant monetary consequence, who one Saturday morning cracked open a standard Federal Reserve Bank roll of dimes he had obtained from his local branch and, working methodically through the roll as he always did with a loop and a sorting tray, arrived at a 2013 D dime that stopped his hand mid-motion because the lettering in the motto looked wrong, looked double. looked like what he had read about in numismatic publications but never expected to see in an ordinary bank roll on an ordinary Saturday morning in his kitchen. The call he made to his numismatic contact that afternoon, the submission to PCGS that followed, the certification that came back weeks later, the auction consultation that followed the certification. These are the steps in a sequence that transformed a face-value 10-cent coin into documented wealth that changed the trajectory of his family's financial life in ways that no amount of professional accounting work had been able to accomplish. There is also the story of a grandmother in the Midwest whose late husband had been a casual coin collector, leaving behind several shoeboxes of unsearched rolls and accumulated coinage when he passed. Boxes that sat in a closet for 3 years before her adult daughter suggested having a coin dealer evaluate the contents, a suggestion that led to a basement session with a dealer who almost missed the 2013 Dime entirely because it was loose at the bottom of a box rather than in a roll, a coin the dealer nearly set aside in the face value pile before something made him look again. Something made him reach for his loupe, and what he saw through that loupe made him set the coin down very carefully on the green felt of his examination mat and say four words that the grandmother later described as the strangest and best words she had ever heard. "I need to sit down." These stories are not embellishments or collector mythology. They are the documented human reality of what happens when manufacturing error, statistical rarity, and individual attention intersect, and they carry within them a message that is simultaneously humbling and electrifying. The coins are real, they are out there, and the person who finds the next one will be someone exactly like you who decided to look carefully at something the rest of the world had dismissed as ordinary pocket change. Grading is the mechanism through which a found coin becomes documented wealth, and for a variety of this rarity and this valuation, the grading process deserves its own careful examination because understanding it is part of understanding why the $58 million figure attached to the finest known example of this variety is not speculation but a reflection of specific, measurable, reproducible numismatic criteria. The Sheldon scale that grading services use runs from 1 to 70, with 70 representing a theoretically perfect coin showing no imperfections under 5 times magnification, and the $58 million valuation is associated with an example grading MS67 or above. Mint State 67, a coin that has never been circulated, never been handled roughly, never been cleaned or improperly stored, with nearly all of its original mint luster intact, with only the most minimal contact marks visible under magnification, with strike quality and surface preservation that place it among the finest examples of its date and mint mark combination in addition to carrying the double die error. The difference in collector value between an MS63 example of this variety and an MS67 example is not incremental. It is potentially the difference between a remarkable find worth several $100,000 and a generational find worth tens of millions, and this is why the instruction to never clean, never polish, never dip, never wipe, and never store improperly any coin you believe may be a significant error variety is not a suggestion but a financial imperative of the highest order. The Professional Coin Grading Service and Numismatic Guarantee Company are the two grading services whose certifications carry universal market acceptance, and submission to one of these services is the only path from personal discovery to documented, marketable, auction-ready numismatic asset. Authentication runs parallel to grading as an equally critical process, because the collector market's awareness of the 2013 double die obverse variety has created an inevitable market for deception, with altered coins, chemically treated surfaces, and hand-engraved fake doubling, all representing real threats to the buyer or seller who proceeds without professional authentication. The graders at PCGS and NGC are trained specifically to distinguish genuine hub doubling from every known form of artificial or accidental imitation, examining die flow lines under high magnification, measuring strike characteristics against known authentic specimens, analyzing surface topography for evidence of post-mint alteration, and confirming that the coin's physical specifications, 2.27 grams, 17.9 millimeters diameter, copper-nickel clad composition, reeded edge, fall within the precise tolerances of a genuine United States mint product. Beyond the general specifications, professional authenticators also examine the die markers specific to the working die that produced the 2013 D-double die obverse variety, the microscopic incidental scratches, polish lines, and surface characteristics unique to that individual die fingerprints that are cataloged in reference materials and that serve as the final, irrefutable confirmation that a submitted coin is a genuine example of the variety and not an altered or fabricated imitation. Machine doubling, the most common source of confusion for beginning collectors, is the counterfeit not of a forger's hand but of the minting process itself. It occurs when the die shifts slightly during the strike, creating a flat, shelf-like secondary impression that lacks the depth, the rounded character, and the three-dimensional quality of genuine hub doubling. And while machine doubling is visible under magnification and can initially appear similar to a true double die, the distinction is clear to a trained eye and absolutely critical to the monetary value of the coin. Since machine doubling adds precisely zero collector premium while genuine double die adds millions. The auction market for this variety has produced results that have sent shockwaves through numismatic investment circles, with the documented sale prices for confirmed genuine examples of the 2013 D-double die obverse Roosevelt Dime, representing some of the most dramatic value appreciation in modern coin collecting history, driven by the combination of absolute rarity, the confirmed population of known specimens remaining in the single digits to low teens, and the dramatic, visually compelling nature of the error itself, which makes confirmed examples not just financially valuable but genuinely beautiful in the collector's sense. Objects that display their rarity openly, that wear their story on their face, that communicate through the doubled lettering and the doubled eye of a president everything that is extraordinary about their existence. Heritage Auctions and Stack's Bowers, the two dominant houses for serious American numismatic sales, have both handled modern Roosevelt Dime era varieties under fully authenticated, certificated conditions, and the bidding intensity that ultra-rare modern era coins generate at these events reflects a collector and investor community that has fully internalized the understanding that rarity combined with visual drama combined with documented authenticity creates a category of tangible asset that occupies its own financial universe, immune to the fluctuations that affect mass-market collectibles and governed instead by the simple, powerful economics of supply and demand when supply is 15 or fewer and demand spans a global community of serious collectors. The investment dimension of coins like the 2013 D-double die obverse has not been lost on the financial world beyond numismatics, with asset managers and high-net-worth collectors increasingly treating ultra-rare certified error coins as a legitimate store of value alongside more conventional alternative investments, a development that has introduced new bidder profiles into major numismatic auctions and that has contributed to the escalating price benchmarks that now define the top of this market. Yet for all the financial architecture that surrounds this coin, the grading services and the auction houses and the investment frameworks, the most fundamentally human and exciting dimension of the 2013 D-double die obverse Roosevelt Dime remains exactly what it was on the day the first confirmed example was identified. The possibility, concrete and mathematically real, that another example is out there right now, unidentified, unexamined, sitting in a change jar or a bankroll or a shoebox in someone's closet, waiting with the perfect patience of inanimate objects for the person with enough knowledge to recognize it. A coin minted in 2013 has had just over a decade in circulation, a geological eye blink in numismatic terms, and given the over 1.3 billion examples produced by the Denver Mint that year, the probability that the complete universe of genuine double die obverse examples has already been found and certified is not just low. It is essentially zero. because the history of error coin discovery across every denomination and every era tells us consistently and without exception that major varieties continue to surface for decades after their mint year, that the majority of significant finds come not from professional searchers but from ordinary people who happened to acquire the right knowledge at the right moment and applied it to the coins already in their lives, to search effectively and intelligently for the 2013 D-double die obverse. Roosevelt Dime, you need to begin with the most basic and non-negotiable requirement. The coin must be dated 2013 and must bear the D mint mark position just above the date on the obverse, because this error variety is specific to Denver production and no Philadelphia or West Point examples of this specific double die have been documented. Beyond the correct date and mint mark, you need a quality loop of at least 10 power magnification, ideally from a reputable optical supplier rather than the cheapest option available, because the quality of the optics directly affects your ability to distinguish genuine hub doubling from machine doubling and other surface anomalies. You need good directional lighting, a small LED flashlight or coin examination light held at a low, oblique angle to the coin's surface will create raking light conditions that dramatically enhance the visibility of any surface relief variations, including the rounded, raised doubling of a genuine double die variety. And you need to examine the correct areas in the correct sequence, beginning with the motto "In God We Trust," where the doubling on confirmed specimens is most immediately visible, moving to the word liberty, then to the date numerals, and finally to Roosevelt's "I," where the separated double image of the portrait's most expressive feature creates the visual moment that confirmed collectors describe as the instant of recognition, the moment when a routine examination becomes something else entirely. What you are looking for in each of these areas is rounded, complete, fully formed secondary lettering or imagery running parallel to and separated from the primary design elements at a consistent offset, not flat, shelf-like distortion, not a smeared blurring of the primary image, but a genuine second impression with its own depth and definition, standing beside the first impression the way a shadow stands beside its source, except that unlike a shadow, this second impression has full three-dimensional character and was placed there by the hub, not by the light. Yet the advice to search comes always with the companion advice to approach any potential find with disciplined caution rather than unchecked excitement, because the history of high-value numismatic varieties is also a history of disappointment for those who convince themselves they have found something extraordinary before professional examination confirms it, and the proper sequence is always to examine carefully, to note your observations, to seek a preliminary opinion from a knowledgeable numismatist if one is accessible to you, and then, if the preliminary assessment is encouraging, to submit the coin to PCGS or NGC for the professional authentication and grading that transforms a personal belief into a documented, marketable, financially real numismatic asset. The comparison of the 2013 D-double die obverse to other varieties within the modern Roosevelt Dime series illuminates just how exceptional this coin truly is. There have been other Roosevelt Dime double die varieties documented over the decades since the series began in 1946, and there have been other error types including off-center strikes, clipped planchets, wrong planchet errors, and die cap errors, but none of these approaches the 2013 D-double die obverse in the combination of bold visual drama, confirmed extreme rarity measured in single-digit to low double-digit populations, recent mint date that maximizes discovery potential, and documented market valuations that reach into the tens of millions of dollars. This coin does not compete within its series. It stands apart from it, the way a comet stands apart from the stars it passes, brilliant and unmistakable and occupying its own trajectory entirely. The modern context of this variety's existence carries its own layer of significance that is worth sitting with for a moment. We live in an era of increasingly sophisticated mint quality control, of digital inspection systems and statistical process monitoring and automated defect detection, and yet the 2013 D-double die obverse Roosevelt Dime exists, escaped those systems, reached circulation, and is now one of the most valuable small coins in the modern American numismatic canon. This is not a failure of modern technology, but rather a confirmation of the fundamental truth that the United States Mint produces coins in quantities so vast, with dies that each strike so many individual pieces, that the complete elimination of all errors is a statistical impossibility, and that the collector community's ongoing documentation of new error discoveries year after year, decade after decade, is not nostalgia for a less precise era of coinage but an accurate reflection of an ongoing reality. Errors happen, errors escape, errors reach your hands, and the knowledge of what to look for is the only thing standing between an ordinary Tuesday and a life-changing discovery. So now you know everything: the mint year, the mint mark, the nature of the error, the areas where the doubling appears, the tools you need, the authentication process, the grading hierarchy, the auction market reality, the human stories of discovery, the fake warnings, the technical specifications, the die manufacturing story that explains how this coin came to exist. And all of that knowledge lives in your mind right now as a permanent, portable, actionable tool that you can apply to every 2013 D-Dime you encounter from this moment forward. Examine your change, search your coin jars, buy rolls from your bank, and work through them on a Saturday morning with your loupe and your directional light and the patient attention that distinguishes the collector who finds things from the collector who almost found things. Share this video with the people in your life who also handle coins and change and might benefit from knowing what to look for. Subscribe to Error Coins Hub so that every new discovery, every new variety, every new piece of knowledge that could transform an ordinary moment into an extraordinary one comes directly to you, because this channel exists for exactly one reason, which is to make sure that the person who finds the next 2013 D double die obverse Roosevelt Dime is someone who was prepared to recognize it, and that person could absolutely, concretely, and without any exaggeration whatsoever be you.